My name is Ava Reynolds. I'm 28, living in San Francisco, and working as a freelance graphic designer. My job isn't just about making things look pretty, it's about staying calm when chaos surrounds you. And that calm is exactly what I needed on Thanksgiving, though I didn't know it yet. The house looked perfect. Warm lights, football blaring, and the chatter of my family trying to pass it off as closeness. Cynthia, my mother, had outdone herself. Table set like a magazine spread, candles flickering, the scent of roasted turkey filling the air. Everything screamed family perfection. I tried to believe this year could be different. Foolishly, I allowed myself to feel a little excitement about the vacation we had been circling around for weeks. It felt safe to say out loud, like a small peace offering. So, during dinner, as the conversation drifted to flights and who needed a break, I smiled and said, I can't wait for our vacation. I meant it. I meant us. The room froze for a second before Cynthia laughed. Not a polite chuckle, but a sharp, confident laugh that cut through the cozy atmosphere. She leaned forward, eyes twinkling, and said, Vacations for family without you. I blinked, certain I misheard her. Who says that at Thanksgiving? In front of everyone. Like it's a joke. Then the laughter hit in waves. Robert, my father, laughed. Ethan, my brother, laughed. Natalie, my sister, laughed. Not nervous, not uncertain, it was loud, full-bodied laughter that told me they'd already decided my place, not at the table. I felt my chest tighten, a physical squeeze of humiliation and shock. But my face remained calm. I nodded once, like she'd said something harmless. Then, with a smooth motion that betrayed none of my racing heart, I pushed my chair back and grabbed my coat. I didn't argue. I didn't beg for an explanation. I just smiled and walked out while they continued laughing at my expense. I sat in my car, hands on the steering wheel, staring at the glow of the dining room window. The muffled sounds of them enjoying Thanksgiving without me filled the air. I whispered to myself, fine. Have your vacation. What I didn't yet know was that they didn't just want me gone, they wanted my money gone too. The realization hit slowly, creeping over me like cold water. 4 years, I had been the dependable one, the one who quietly covered the gaps when Ethan was between jobs, or when Natalie spent like her wedding had a secret sponsor. I had been the invisible financial cushion, the one expected to make everything smooth while remaining unseen. And now, with a single laugh, they had made it clear I wasn't family unless I was paying. Back in my apartment, I didn't do the dramatic thing. No crying. No throwing my phone. I showered, put on pajamas, and sat on the edge of my bed, feeling the hollow buzz of humiliation. My mother's words echoed in my head, without you. The laughter of my family lingered, like a stain I couldn't scrub off. For the first time, I realized how much I had been trained to swallow their entitlement, how often I had silently carried their burdens, assuming that's what family meant. But this Thanksgiving, that pattern snapped. I wasn't going to call. I wasn't going to plead for a place at the table. I decided then that if they wanted to exclude me, they could do so in every way, but not with my money. That night, I opened my banking app, looking at an old college checking account that I had barely touched in years. My mother had access, set up back then just in case. Over time, I kept it as a cushion, a secret safety net for emergencies, or for my family's emergencies, really. Now, it felt like armor. Seeing that account again, I realized, if they could laugh at me, they could also assume entitlement to my money. I quietly moved most of the balance into my personal account, one only I controlled, and turned on every alert. Every withdrawal. Every transfer. I wanted to know immediately if anyone dared touch a single cent. Then I opened the family group chat. Photos of resorts, links to activities, jokes about matching outfits. My mom typing, "Can't wait for our family trip, heavy black hard hash." Natalie posting about a luau. Ethan joking about needing a bigger suitcase. Not a single word to me. Not even a glance acknowledging that I existed. That's when the hurt shifted into something sharper and colder. They weren't confused about me. They were comfortable without me. And I decided I would become equally comfortable protecting myself, no matter how dramatic they claimed I was being. After that Thanksgiving, Ava Reynolds felt a mixture of humiliation and clarity. Sitting on her bed, staring at the muted glow of her laptop, she realized one thing. Her family had never truly treated her as family, they treated her as a financial resource. That laugh at the dinner table had revealed the truth. She was the dependable one, the safety net, the invisible bank, and nothing more. She told herself she wouldn't chase. She wouldn't call Cynthia asking for an explanation. She already knew the meaning. She didn't count unless she was paying. And that's when Ava decided to act. She needed control. Practical, undeniable control. Around midnight, she opened her banking app and started reviewing every account she had. Her main checking was secure, but there was that old college account, a forgotten account her mother had helped her set up years ago. At the time, she had given Cynthia access just in case. Over the years, it had become a secret emergency fund, a cushion she rarely touched. Now, it became her armor. Carefully, Ava began moving the majority of the balance into her personal account, the one she alone controlled. She enabled every possible alert, withdrawals, transfers, anything over a certain amount. She needed real-time information if anyone dared touch the money she had earned. Then came the group chat. Photos of resorts, links to activities, jokes about outfits. Cynthia posted, "Can't wait for our family trip, heavy black hard hash." Natalie talked about the luau, and Ethan joked about packing too much. Every post reminded Ava how invisible she had become. Not one person acknowledged her. Not one person questioned if she was included. Ava realized she was staring at a show she was expected to fund. That clarity brought a strange calm. She wasn't going to argue. She wasn't going to explain herself. She would protect herself silently, efficiently. Over the next few days, she buried herself in work. Client calls, revising brand decks, checking deadlines. Every time she felt her mind drifting to the Thanksgiving humiliation, she grounded herself in action. She refused to answer Cynthia's calls. Short voicemails came, dripping with false sweetness. "Hey sweetheart, call me back when you can. Miss you. Love you." No apology, no acknowledgement of the laughter. Ava ignored them all. Meanwhile, the family chat remained a digital playground for their excitement. Natalie shared screenshots of itineraries. Ethan posted a picture of sunglasses with the caption, "Vacation mode." Robert reacted with thumbs-up emojis. They were perfectly comfortable excluding her. And Ava realized, comfort had always been their weapon. 1 week after Thanksgiving, a Tuesday afternoon brought clarity. Ava was reviewing a brand guideline document when her phone buzzed, bank alert. Withdrawal request pending. Amount, $6,500. Her stomach sank. That wasn't a mistake, not a subscription. It was deliberate. Ava recognized the number immediately, a large, final payment for something extravagant. She checked the account, her old college account, and saw the request originated from a branch near her parents' neighborhood in Los Angeles. Instead of panic, she felt sharp clarity. Someone was attempting to take what wasn't theirs. Her heart raced, but her hands stayed steady. She called the bank immediately, explaining the need to verify a pending in-person withdrawal. The representative asked security questions, then came back with a cautious tone. Someone listed as a secondary account holder was trying to withdraw. Ava didn't need the name. She knew. Cynthia. For the first time, she fully understood the plan. They didn't just want a vacation without her, they wanted a vacation funded by her. Everything clicked: the group chat posts, Natalie's confirmations, Ethan's jokes, Cynthia's voicemails. Every detail screamed entitlement. The bank representative explained the solution: closing the account would immediately block the pending withdrawal, and creating a new account under Ava's name alone would ensure no one else had access. Ava gave the firm instruction: close it now, permanently, and issue new cards solely in her name. As she listened to the keyboard clicks confirming closure, Ava felt something she hadn't in years: relief. Not fear. Not guilt. Relief. She had stopped being the safety net. For the first time, her money was truly hers. Her family couldn't bully a bank, couldn't storm her apartment, couldn't override her decisions. They were suddenly powerless. And Ava realized, boundaries weren't just protection, they were truth. That evening, the group chat lit up with messages. Cynthia, Robert, Ethan, Natalie, all calling, texting, demanding, pleading. Ava didn't respond. Instead, she took screenshots, proof of the attempted withdrawal, proof of the declined transaction. She wouldn't argue, wouldn't justify. Facts were enough. She felt something strange, calm, controlled, untouchable. For the first time, she was acting for herself, not for anyone else's comfort or illusion of family. After Ava closed the account and secured her money, a strange calm settled over her. The storm wasn't gone, her phone kept buzzing, her family still trying to insert themselves into her life, but she felt a small, precious control returning. For the first time in years, she wasn't running for anyone else's comfort. She could breathe without guilt. Sitting on the edge of her bed, Ava stared at the glow of her laptop and phone, thinking about the vacation her family had planned without her. They were going to Hawaii, laughing about her exclusion, counting on her resources without a second thought. And now, for the first time, she didn't have to play that role. A small, rebellious thrill coursed through her. If they wanted without Ava, she could give it to them, on her own terms. Ava opened her travel app and scrolled through destinations. Not Hawaii. Not the resorts her family had chosen. Somewhere quiet. Somewhere she could fully disappear into her own thoughts. Lake Tahoe caught her eye: simple cabins, clear water, snow-dusted mountains. No crowds, no prying eyes, no reminders of exclusion. She picked a cabin close to the lake, clicked confirm, and felt a rush of liberation. The logistics were almost secondary. Flights booked, cabin reserved, rental car arranged. Each step was deliberate, controlled, a quiet rebellion against years of being expected to cover everyone else's chaos. For the first time, she was spending money on herself without guilt. No one would mock her. No one would claim entitlement. This trip was for Ava. While preparing, she also strengthened her boundaries at home. The door camera was installed, discreet but effective. She informed her building manager that no one was allowed upstairs without her explicit permission. Every online account was secured, two-factor authentication activated, and the new checking account was locked down. She even froze her credit, not out of paranoia, but out of necessity. Her family had shown what entitlement looked like, and she wasn't willing to risk it again. The morning of her flight, Ava packed quietly, methodically. She didn't tell anyone where she was going. No group chat announcements, no last-minute calls. She was reclaiming her life piece by piece. Every item placed in her suitcase was a small act of independence. Every step toward the airport was a step away from the role she had been forced to play for so long. On the plane, Ava felt the tension of months, years even, begin to dissolve. She wasn't negotiating her worth. She wasn't worrying about her usefulness. She wasn't second-guessing whether she was loved enough to be included. She was simply present in her own life. The snow-capped mountains of Lake Tahoe felt like a promise. This was a space where her boundaries mattered, where her peace mattered, where her family's drama couldn't reach. When she arrived, the quiet was shocking at first. No calls, no notifications, no looming expectations. Just the sound of her boots crunching in fresh snow, the pale morning sun reflecting off the lake. She brewed coffee, took a slow walk along the shoreline, and allowed herself to notice things she hadn't in years: the crispness of the air, the way the water caught the light, the soft hum of a world that didn't demand her compliance. Ava realized something profound: peace wasn't about being needed. It wasn't about holding everything together for everyone else. Peace was about allowing herself to exist without constant justification. That's what she had been missing. Her family didn't make her calm. Her own choices did. The days in Lake Tahoe were filled with small joys she had long ignored. She tried snowshoeing, sat by the lake reading, and even signed up for a local cooking class she had seen online. Each activity was a reminder: her life didn't revolve around their approval, their requests, or their entitlement. She was allowed to enjoy herself without explanation. And through it all, Ava reflected on what had brought her here. The Thanksgiving laughter, the attempted withdrawal, the group chat messages, they had all been catalysts. Painful, humiliating catalysts, but necessary. Without those moments, she might still be running herself ragged to satisfy people who never truly respected her. By the end of the week, Ava felt a sense of clarity she hadn't known in years. She was no longer the safety net, the invisible bank, the one expected to swallow humiliation silently. She was her own person, with her own money, her own decisions, and her own peace. For the first time, choosing herself didn't feel selfish. It felt essential. Ava had barely unpacked her suitcase in Lake Tahoe when her phone started buzzing relentlessly. At first, she ignored it: messages from her family, missed calls stacked like bricks, voicemails piling up. Each notification carried the same weight: entitlement, anger, and disbelief that she had finally drawn a line. Her mother, Vanessa, had mastered the art of performance. Voicemails swung between heavy tears and theatrical outrage, as if the act of calling Ava was proof of her pain. "Ava, I can't believe you would do this to me. After everything I've done for you." Each word was carefully timed, meant to provoke guilt. Ava listened calmly, letting them air their drama while she stayed grounded. She didn't respond. She didn't need to. Her father, James, texted next. His tone was different, less performative, more measured, but it carried the same expectation: compliance. "You embarrassed the family. You made us look bad. That money was for everyone. You're being selfish." Even her siblings, Eric and Mia, chimed in through the group chat with frustration and demands. Eric wrote, "Do you know how much we are going to lose if this doesn't go through?" Mia added, "Ava, this is ruining everything. Just unlock it and we'll sort it later." Each message was predictable, like a script she had read before. Ava had expected this. She had prepared for it. Instead of spiraling, she began collecting evidence. Screenshots of every message, every voicemail, every admission that they had expected to use her money. Documentation became her shield. She reminded herself that boundaries are most important when they are tested, and this was a test they had chosen to fail. Her first act of defense was technical. Every financial account she owned was secured, two-factor authentication activated, and her credit frozen. The new checking account, under her name alone, was locked down. The old account was permanently closed. She had called her bank personally, confirmed every detail, and ensured no one could override her decisions. Every potential loophole her family might exploit was closed before they even realized it existed. Next, she focused on her apartment. She installed a small security camera at the front door, not out of paranoia, but to document any trespassing or harassment. She informed her building management that no one could be allowed upstairs without her explicit permission. Each step was deliberate, a silent message: I will no longer be intimidated, used, or silenced. Then came the legal step. Ava contacted a lawyer, not to sue, but to establish clear boundaries in writing. A cease and desist letter was drafted, explicitly stating that her family could no longer attempt to access her accounts, enter her residence, or involve third parties in harassment. It also noted that any further attempts to bypass these boundaries could be used as evidence in court, should it escalate. The language was precise, leaving no room for misinterpretation or negotiation. While these practical measures were underway, Ava continued to observe her family from a distance. Their frustration grew. Messages in the group chat turned chaotic, Vanessa blaming James for the vacation mishap, Eric blaming his parents for overpromising, Mia accusing Eric of not stepping up financially. The dynamic Ava had endured for years finally turned inward on itself. They were unraveling without her intervention. Ava didn't gloat. She didn't taunt. Instead, she embraced the quiet power of her boundaries. She realized something important: their control over her relied entirely on her compliance. Once she stopped complying, the illusion of family authority cracked. The loud threats, the guilt, the anger, they all depended on her reacting. She didn't react. One evening, after a long walk by the lake, Ava sat in the cabin with her coffee and reviewed everything she had done: financial security, documentation, legal boundaries, and personal safety measures. Each action was a brick in the wall protecting her peace. She felt a strange mix of relief and satisfaction. For the first time, she was truly untouchable, not because of confrontation or anger, but because she had made the decision to prioritize herself. By the time the sun dipped behind the mountains, Ava's phone was buzzing less. She hadn't responded to a single call. Not a text, not a voicemail. Her family had no access, no leverage, and no way to make her feel guilty. And in that silence, she found something she hadn't felt in years: freedom. The morning sunlight filtered through the cabin windows, casting golden streaks across the wooden floor. Ava wrapped herself in a thick blanket, sipping her coffee slowly, feeling a kind of peace she hadn't known in years. No buzzing phone, no guilt-laden messages, no laughter that reminded her she was optional. Just her, the lake, and the mountains stretching endlessly ahead. She stepped outside, letting the crisp mountain air fill her lungs. Snow crunched softly under her boots, a sound so quiet it almost felt sacred. For the first time in a long time, Ava wasn't reacting to anyone else's expectations. She wasn't fixing, covering, or paying for anyone else's mistakes. She was simply being. During the day, she explored trails along the lake, letting her mind wander. Every footstep felt like a small reclaiming of her autonomy. Memories of Thanksgiving, the group chat messages, and the attempted withdrawal flashed in her mind, but instead of tightening her chest, they reminded her of how far she had come. She had acted, set boundaries, and protected herself. She hadn't caved, and she wasn't going to. Ava decided to join a local cooking class she had seen online earlier that week. It wasn't glamorous, just a small, cozy kitchen with a handful of other travelers and locals, but the experience was liberating. She laughed at her own mistakes, learned new recipes, and for the first time in years, felt the simple joy of doing something solely for herself. She chatted casually with Jordan, a local artist and fellow cooking enthusiast, sharing tips and stories. Nothing romantic, nothing forced, just authentic human connection. Back at the cabin, Ava took time to journal. She wrote down her thoughts, the lessons she had learned, and the feelings she had long buried under obligation and guilt. She reflected on the strange power of boundaries, how simple it had been to implement them, yet how revolutionary the act felt in her life. By standing up for herself, she realized she had not only protected her finances, but reclaimed her identity from people who treated her like a resource rather than a family member. Evenings by the lake became a ritual. Ava brewed tea, wrapped herself in a blanket, and watched the sunset paint the sky in shades of pink and orange. The reflection on the water was calm, steady, and unshakable, the exact mirror of how she wanted to feel internally. She realized that for years, she had equated peace with silence, sacrifice, and invisibility. Now, she understood the truth: peace was refusing to shrink for anyone else's comfort. One night, after a long walk along the shoreline, Ava received a notification from the family group chat. She ignored it. She knew exactly what it was: another wave of demands, guilt, and entitlement. Instead of engaging, she opened her journal and wrote one line: "My peace is non-negotiable." Those 5 words carried more power than any argument or justification she had ever tried to make. Throughout the week, Ava explored more of the outdoors, kayaking on the lake, hiking small trails, and even attempting snowshoeing on her own. Each activity was a declaration: her life didn't revolve around anyone else's drama. She laughed freely, ate when she was hungry, rested when she was tired, and didn't check her phone compulsively. This was life on her terms. By midweek, Ava began to notice a shift in her energy. The tension she had carried for years, the weight of being everyone's safety net, started to lift. Her boundaries, her security measures, and her independence had created a protective space where she could thrive. She felt a clarity that had been impossible when her family's chaos dictated her every move. For the first time, Ava realized something profound: she didn't need approval, validation, or inclusion to feel whole. The freedom she felt wasn't just about money or vacations. It was about ownership of her time, her space, and her life. And for the first time, she was living without compromise, without guilt, without the silent pressure to be everything to everyone. As she watched the sun set behind the mountains, Ava smiled. She wasn't angry anymore, and she didn't feel lonely. She felt liberated, capable, and alive. Her family could continue their chaos without her, but she had discovered something far more valuable: herself. By the time Ava returned to San Francisco from Lake Tahoe, she felt different. Not just lighter physically, but internally, something had shifted. The peace she had carved out for herself during the solo trip stayed with her, a quiet shield against the storm she knew would await. She had reclaimed control of her finances, her boundaries, and most importantly, her sense of self-worth. As expected, the notifications from her family had escalated while she was away. The group chat buzzed with frantic messages, voicemails, and missed calls. Vanessa, her mother, tried every tactic she knew: pleading, guilt-tripping, and even anger. Eric and Mia were relentless, demanding explanations, insisting she unlock the funds, and trying to make her feel responsible for the family vacation's collapse. James, her father, oscillated between calm rationalizations and veiled threats. Ava read everything, silently, without a word. She realized something critical: they were unraveling. The plans they had relied on her to fund had collapsed spectacularly. Deposits were lost. Reservations were partially refunded. Tours were non-refundable. Every carefully curated image of the perfect vacation was now marred by consequences they had chosen to ignore while counting on her compliance. For years, Ava had been the silent fixer, the one who quietly made their plans possible, covering gaps and smoothing over chaos. Now, she was absent, and the full weight of accountability fell squarely on them. Ava didn't gloat. She didn't need to. The lesson had been made clear by their own actions. Every time she had tried to assert herself in the past, it had been met with ridicule or dismissal. But now, she saw the truth in plain sight. Their dependence on her had been disguised as love, but it was really just convenience and entitlement. They had expected her to obey, to pay, to be invisible, all while laughing at her exclusion. She continued documenting everything: screenshots of messages, voicemails, and emails, creating a digital timeline of events that clearly showed their attempts to exploit her. Not for revenge, but as proof, a safety net, and a reminder to herself that her boundaries were valid, necessary, and non-negotiable. The legal steps she had taken before leaving Tahoe were reinforced with these records, making it clear to anyone who doubted her actions that she was acting within her rights and protecting herself. The irony wasn't lost on Ava. Her family had spent years attempting to control her through guilt, obligation, and financial pressure. And now, they were paying the price for the very behavior they had normalized for her. Ava watched the fallout quietly, no longer tethered to their expectations or demands. Vanessa's attempts to spin a public narrative on social media had minimal impact. Relatives who had initially sympathized began to notice inconsistencies, questioning the story that had been carefully crafted to paint Ava as dramatic or ungrateful. Meanwhile, Ava's life moved forward. She focused on her freelance work, connecting with clients who respected her talent and independence. She rejoined the local art community, attended workshops, and built friendships that were reciprocal and nourishing. The small steps, exploring new hobbies, taking solo trips, investing in her personal growth, reminded her that she no longer needed to seek validation from those who had consistently undermined her. One afternoon, a distant relative reached out privately, acknowledging the truth. They expressed regret for being caught up in Vanessa's narrative and validated Ava's decision to assert her boundaries. This quiet support reinforced something Ava had known all along: protection and self-respect were not betrayal. They were essential. By the end of the week, Ava felt an overwhelming sense of empowerment. Her family could no longer manipulate her, access her resources, or dictate her sense of worth. The drama that had once consumed her life was now a distant echo. Ava had reclaimed her autonomy, her finances, and her peace. She reflected on the lessons that had crystallized over the past few weeks. Love without respect is control in disguise. Silence is not consent. And boundaries are not punishable, they are a declaration of self-worth. Ava had learned that the only way to truly protect herself was to act decisively, with clarity, and without apology. Sitting at her kitchen table one evening, she took a deep breath, savoring the calm. She had survived the storm, and in doing so, discovered something far more valuable than any vacation or family approval: herself. The days after the fallout were quiet in a way that felt almost luxurious. Ava woke up without the usual tension knotted in her chest, without the faint guilt that had lingered for years. Her phone no longer dictated her peace, no urgent pings from her family demanding attention or obedience. Instead, there was space. Space to think, to breathe, and to live. Ava spent her mornings working on projects she loved, sketching, designing, and creating without interruption. She realized she had been so conditioned to prioritize everyone else's needs that she had neglected her own passions. Now, she allowed herself the time to explore them fully. Each completed project, each creative breakthrough, reinforced something she had long forgotten: she was capable, independent, and deserving of respect. Even the reminders of her family's chaos became lessons rather than triggers. She saw the messages in the group chat that she hadn't responded to, the angry voicemails, and the public posts. Instead of anger, she felt clarity. Their attempts to guilt her, manipulate her, and access her resources had failed. Their control was gone. And that meant something profound: she no longer needed their validation to feel whole. Ava also noticed changes in the way her friends treated her. They commented on her confidence, her assertiveness, and her ability to stand her ground without drama. It was a reminder that boundaries not only protect you, they inspire respect. She began mentoring a few younger designers, teaching them not just techniques, but also the importance of self-worth and standing firm against exploitation. Ava realized that the lessons she had learned from her family's toxicity were now tools she could pass on, creating a ripple effect of empowerment. One evening, Ava walked along the Embarcadero, watching the reflection of the city lights shimmer on the water. She thought about Thanksgiving, the group chat, and the attempted withdrawal. It all felt distant now, a chapter that had been necessary for her transformation. She didn't hate her family, nor did she feel the need to retaliate further. What mattered was that she had chosen herself. She had stopped being the safety net for people who never respected her boundaries. Ava reflected on the week she had spent in Lake Tahoe. The solo trip had been more than a getaway, it had been a declaration of independence. She had learned to trust her instincts, enjoy her own company, and take joy in experiences that were solely for her benefit. And now, back in her city, she carried that sense of autonomy into every aspect of her life, her work, her relationships, and her personal growth. By the time she opened her mailbox one afternoon, she found a letter from her lawyer confirming that the cease and desist had been delivered and documented. There was no longer any ambiguity about her legal protections. Her accounts were secure, her credit frozen, and her boundaries legally recognized. The steps she had taken weren't dramatic, they were necessary. And for the first time in years, Ava felt entirely in control of her life. She made herself a cup of tea and sat at her kitchen table, looking out at the city skyline. She allowed herself a quiet smile, realizing the weight she had carried for so long had been hers alone to release. She had done so decisively and effectively. The storm that had seemed insurmountable was now behind her. Ava had learned that freedom didn't come from others, it came from taking ownership of her own life. In the evenings, she continued journaling, but now her entries were filled with plans, dreams, and gratitude for herself. She wrote about her solo trips, her artwork, her newfound friendships, and the small victories that marked her reclaiming of autonomy. Every word reinforced the truth she had learned: she did not need to shrink, obey, or pay to earn love. She was enough on her own. Ava had discovered something her family could never take from her. Money, approval, and obedience could be demanded, but self-respect, peace, and boundaries were hers alone. She had removed herself from a toxic dynamic, reclaimed her energy, and built a life where her decisions mattered. That night, as she sipped her tea and watched the city lights, Ava felt a quiet satisfaction. Not revenge, not bitterness, but freedom. The family that had once laughed at her exclusion now had no power over her life. And in that moment, Ava understood a profound truth: the life you protect and build for yourself is far more valuable than any expectation or entitlement imposed by others. For the first time, she felt truly free.